There we go. We are live. And, all right, we have no listeners yet, I'm sure, but welcome back to Paranormal the New Normal. This week's episode, I have a guest that I've been trying to record with all week, and I'm happy we finally got a chance to sit down and record.
Yay!
And I apologize to all my listeners, all my podcast listeners out there, because this episode will be a day or two late, but I think it'll be worth it. So you'll have to wait. And you had a bonus episode this week as well on Wednesday, so no complaining. And I have a bunch more bonus episodes lined up for the next few weeks, so I'll keep you happy. But my guest today is Willow Becker of Weird Little Worlds Publishing Company. Willow, how you doing today?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be here. I love paranormal stuff. It's awesome.
So, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about you, whatever you want us to tell them, and a little bit about your company that you co-founded.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I'm Willow, and I've been publishing for the last couple years. I live in Utah, and I grew up in a family where we pretty much believed everything. My family has a really weird history. I don't know if you found this, but there are sometimes you find like women who pass down strange abilities from generation to generation. And my family was one of those. So my mom, my grandma, my great grandma all have kind of these extra sensory abilities, and so those have passed down in in my life, in my line, which is really cool. So I've always thought that the ethereal and the paranormal is really interesting, just because I've had a lot of experience with it as a like for my personal life. And then I decided that I wanted to write. I mean, I'm a writer, so I want to write stories about that. That's like really all I write stories about. It's all I read about. And then I decided that I wanted to put together an anthology of all my favorite writers. And I had a friend who was like, "Well, you should just start your publishing company." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I did, and yeah, so that's what I did. And I made this great anthology last year, and it was really really great. Called "Humans Are the Problem." It's a monster anthology from monster perspectives. And this year we just finished doing the slush, the process for our new anthology called Mother: Tales of Love and Terror, which kind of goes along with my own kind of backstory there. Like my mom and my grandmother and my great grandmother were all kind of I wouldn't say witchy. Witchy's the wrong word, but we have this kind of additional sense. So yeah,
Sensitivity is what we generally call it. It's
right,
called sensitivity, and some people are blessed with it, some people are cursed with it, and some people don't have it at all. So,
right, yeah. And I wouldn't say that we're like I'm not like super like I'm not like super special, but I do have a little bit of a sensitivity. So
all right. So, what what kind of stories can they expect to find in the books that your company puts out? Like, what kind of horror
oh my
is it?
gosh. Well, I think that's what makes the my company so fun. I think that's what Weird Little Worlds is so cool. Like we actually publish science fiction, fantasy, horror, and adventure stories. But so far we've just been focusing on horror and kind of dark fiction. But the Mother anthology is really exciting because it's just really great. We just finished all the reading for it. We just chose the stories today, so we know the whole lineup, and the anthology is so good. It's just full of stories that are like interesting and funny and provocative and weird, and some of them are really weird, and I love it. It's so great, but the stories that you'll find they're mostly pretty scary stories, but we are a PG-13 company, so like we try to have stories that you could read with your teenager, like that your teenager could read and you wouldn't have to feel too uncomfortable about. We like don't have a ton of bad language, and you know, so nothing rated R, nothing gratuitous. We don't do a lot of that gratuitous stuff. So if that's what you're into, that's not what we do.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I mean, well, no, I mean PG-13 is the way to go with these type of things. I believe fully because I mean, yes, there's plenty enough books out there for people who want to read the really gruesome stuff. Read some Stephen King if you want to read that stuff, which I love. I love Stephen King, so I can say
Yeah.
that. But I mean, PG-13 books are good because it gets the younger audience into this type of literature, and that's a
Mhm.
great thing, I believe.
Yeah.
I
Of course, and not to cut you off, but just so you know, it's not young adult fiction. It is adult fiction, just happy on a little bit. It's not. We're not trying to push anybody's like lines. We're not trying to be. We're not shock horror at all. That's just not what we do.
yeah, I mean it reminds me of books I liked when I was a kid, like Scary Stories Tell in the Dark and
Hmm.
those type of anthologies that now are movies. So who
Yeah,
knows? Maybe your books can someday be a movie.
that would be amazing. I love. So I think what's so cool about this particular version. Hi, this is my daughter, at least. Okay.
Mine's kicking at the door trying to get in the room with me, but
But the way I think that what's cool about this anthology is that it is adult. It's literary. So a lot of these stories are really beautifully written. They're just really fantastically written. But our editorial staff were kind of wanted to kind of wanted to do both kind of a literary, and then we also wanted to do like just have really well developed plots. So what I love about this is like when you typically read literary horror, sometimes you can get into this position where you have like really slow stories, but these stories are all really fast. They're very plot driven, and we have kind of big stories and small stories, and from all different views of what motherhood looks like, and then making those themes like really spooky and weird.
yeah, which is amazing. It really is. I mean, and there's so much room out there in the world for stories like this, and it's just a great thing to do. I I actually have been thinking about writing a book myself because I've had a couple authors on here so far, and one of them, Eleanor Wagner, wrote stories about counties around her from New Jersey with real life stories of different people in her areas telling them stories of ghost stories and Bigfoot and everything in between. So I would love to do that for my local area in Massachusetts. The other day, I was just thinking about while I was driving, I was like, I should start doing this maybe, and maybe it will be a good thing to do. I don't know,
I think
but
that sounds pretty cool.
yeah, like a local hauntings like stories book would be a great thing to do. I might just start looking into that soon. But what made you get into this? Like, were there any experiences that were supernatural, paranormal when you were younger that made you say like, I've seen these things. I want to write stories about them.
Well, I think that I don't know. I probably everybody has like a ghost story or two. I know when I was really young, um, I had we just had really we just I had a really weird upbringing. I think when I was really young, I was kind of forced into horror by my babysitters. I had a bunch of really bad babysitters who would like force me to watch horror movies when I was too young, and just a lot of really stuff like that. But I lived in a trailer when I was like 4, so like my daughter's age, the one that was just in and out of here. I lived in a trailer, and we lived in this kind of weird trailer park. And the guys next to us, they they like killed a bear, and they
Aw.
invited us over to take a look at it. They're like, "Oh, come look at our bear," and so my mom brought me over as a little person to see this bear, and I don't know what my mom was expecting, uh, but what we saw was a bear being hung and blood coming out of its mouth. That's what we saw.
Oh, that's
Um,
not something you should show a kid down now.
no, I don't. I mean, my mom had no idea that that's what we were going to see, but that is what we saw. And it was really shortly after that that I had this kind of consistent experience at night where I would hear this howling outside of my window. Like it was so terrifying. And my mom insists that it was like the wind blowing against my screen on the trailer. But every night I would have this like, ooh, like every night. It was so scary. As a 4-year-old, it was terrifying. And I was convinced there were ghosts. And the only way for me to like uh like protect myself from the ghosts was to tell the ghosts that I was on their side. So at night I'd be like in my bed. I'm like, "Don't kill me, ghosts. I love ghosts. I think ghosts are so cool." It was so weird. So, but as far as otherworldly experiences, I actually have had a number of them. My mother is has this gift. She is a dreamer, and so she has dreams that come true. And so I grew up around her, kind of seeing her ability to dream things and then they would happen. Um, and and then my grandmother would also have like kind of experiences where um, she's had several out of body experiences, and so has my father actually. So I have these two lines of people who have kind of a very loose relationship with reality. And so when I was a little bit younger than quite a bit younger than I am now, I had an experience where um, I I had kind of a possession experience, and that was really terrifying. It was really scary to the people around me, just because it was because I when you're inside of that experience, it doesn't feel like being scared is not what I felt. What I felt was like I was kind of on the back burner of my body, but there wasn't a lot of like, oh, I'm trapped. Ah. It was just like, oh, I feel like I'm not really doing a lot of these things. It was very weird. So, yeah.
Yeah, which those are called there's a name for those dreams. There was a movie about it too, but it wasn't a good movie. But oh my god, why am I forgetting this right now? Oh, trying to think what the heck it is. Premonitions.
Mm,
Which I've had premonitions a bunch of times in my life as well, but my premonitions are always stupid things like just conversations I'm going to have with someone like a month down the road, or
mhm.
something happening at school or work like uh, down the road at some point. It's never anything like amazing where it's like, oh, this is gonna be when aliens come, or no, this is when this is when the apocalypse is gonna be. Like, no, it's just, oh, you're gonna have a conversation with this kid about South Park in a month.
It seems like kind of a silly thing to have a premonition about.
I,
Um,
I swear, since I was a kid, it's just every once in a while I'll get these dreams, and then a month later something will happen. I'll just be like, oh, I dreamt of that. Okay,
yeah, it's
and
funny. Yeah,
life goes on.
my mom my mom has very distinctive dreams. She really is a dreamer. She has the dreams of things that happen that are real. She so for example, when I was really really young, like when I was maybe just a couple of years old, my mom had this dream and she talked about it with my dad, and she outlined it was a very strange dream where they were driving down a highway, and on the side of the road there were just pigs everywhere, these huge pigs, and then there was like corn, and eventually, there was at the end of the road there was like a place, and she knew that it was the home. She knew it was home, um, and um, and so she woke up and she told that to my dad, and my dad said, "Oh, that's really weird. That sounds kind of like a place that I grew up at." And she's like, "Oh, that's weird," and they kind of moved on. And then it was a long time. It was like 10 years later, and my dad had just gotten a job, and they were driving to the new place that he was going to work at, and they're on the on the side of the road. My dad's like, "Oh, there's the pig farm, and that's the cornmeal factory," and my mom's like, "This is from that dream that I had. This is that dream." And my dad's like, "Oh yeah, you did tell me about that. That was like a really long time ago." And yeah, and it was funny because it was the place where my dad grew up. Like that's where we were moving to, is a place that was very much like where my dad grew up. It was actually like right next to the place where my dad grew up. And that location ended up being like really important for our lives. It was a really important place for us because that's where my mom and dad became a part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which became our religion as a family. And then it really changed our lives. So it was really interesting. She had a dream about it, 15 years before it ever happened. And then it happened, and it was a really big deal for us. So it's cool.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting, and those premonitions are kind of similar to the ones I have, where like it's just something you're going to see or something you're going to hear. It doesn't hold a significant meaning, which I don't think a lot of people's premonitions do hold significant meaning. They may for some, but it's just rare to hear that they do.
Yeah.
But unless you're already like a psychic or a medium of some kind, and it's just spirits trying to tell you something, maybe.
Yeah. It's funny. Um, I don't know. I think, at least in my experience, my mom has the significant ability to tell the future with her dreams. She's done it like, I don't know, 10 times. Like, there's all these different dreams that are kind of a part of our family's kind of the bedrock of our family narrative, that are all about like her dreaming about people, or her dreaming about places, and then we end up going there. The dreams end up kind of leading us to where we need to be, which is really cool. But yeah, she's just got that. She's just got that gift. So that's cool.
Did that gift pass on to you at all, possibly, or no?
So I don't have dreams like my mom. I actually, because of my experience, I actually have an awful lot of nightmares. I have really bad nightmares. Um, and So I don't dream. I do, I interpret dreams, but I don't dream. I do, however, feel like I feel like I speak to people who are no longer alive.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so that's a thing that I feel like is a gift that I've been given. I don't talk about it very often, and I don't tell people what I hear unless it's really important. But I have just a sense. I have additional. I just feel like I'm kind of extra sensory anyway, and so I'm really good at like I do things like reading palms and reading people's energy, and I'm really good at that. I'm really good at that stuff. So those are my gifts and skills. And a lot of times I'll start reading palms. I don't do it for money. I don't do anything for the. I always do it for free. I'm not interested in using my gifts for payment, but um, I'll start like somewhere. Someone will be like, "Oh, you will you read my palm?" And I'll read their palm. And then another person will be like, "Read my palm," and I'll read their palm. And then like I really can't talk about it at all until like because everybody wants me to read their palm because sometimes I read someone's palm and they like start crying, and they're like, I didn't even know that that was obvious. And I'm like, that's just what your hand says. I don't know, man. I'm not trying to make you sad. I'm just telling you what your hand says. And it's just kind of a once again, it was just like kind of a that extra sensory skill. It really is like reading their palm, but also reading their energy and the I don't know. I just kind of read people. That's what I do.
Yeah, which I mean, I never had my palm read, but I always been fascinated by the art of it because I don't know. I mean, I think part of me is nervous to hear what people what a palm reader would say to me. So, because I mean, I tend to be a positive person, and if I don't like hearing negative stuff, so if heard some negative stuff for myself, I don't know how I'd react exactly. But
Well, I think that any good palm reader, at least me, I think any good palm reader tries to say the things that are good from the palm that they're reading and try to avoid the things that are scary. Um, like, for example, I was talking with a girl the other day, and basically her palm showed me that she had a big blank spot basically on her lifeline. And I said, so it looks like you have a big blank spot on your lifeline. And she's like, does that mean I'm going to die? And I'm like, no, it doesn't. But it does mean that there is a part of your life that maybe you, um, and because it was in the past, actually, it was in the past of her timeline. And so I was like, it does mean that you probably have a section of your life that you want to forget, something that you would want to erase from your past, like a big chunk that was so detrimental to your health that maybe you almost died. You're clearly here, but but you could have somebody else read it and be like, oh, that means that you're gonna have a heart attack, or I don't know, your baby's gonna die or something like that. And I try to avoid that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't think anybody wants to hear their baby's gonna
Yeah,
die.
no one wants to
That's
hear that stuff. And that's not the stuff that palms usually tell you anyway. Like, not for me at least. When I read someone's palm, I usually it helps me show me who they are, rather than what's going to happen. I don't like reading the future. I don't think it's a good idea to read the future. I actually don't, like, personally do not think it's wise to try and read the future. So I try to read the present, and I try to give people an idea of what their palm says about who they are right now, which is always valuable.
yeah. I mean, the future reading the whole reading the future thing is just. I believe the future is very much in flux always based on our decisions
Mhm.
and what we do. I do believe in fate, but
Mm.
we're fated to do certain things in life, but I think the future is in flux always, and if you try to read it, you're gonna make the future happen a certain way because you influence someone to act a certain way.
Right.
So
Yeah, that makes sense.
I 100% agree with that. As much as I believe in the old school fates, like literally sitting in the swamp at the bottom of the world tree, cutting people's fates in like
Ooh,
threads, but
no.
I'm old school like that. But I just, what can I
I
say?
I think that fate is such a weird idea, because I think that what I believe in, what I'm pretty religious, and my religion believes that there are items in your life that are fated to happen. Basically, it's called foreordination rather than predestination. So we don't believe that your life goes like this, like in a straight line. We don't believe that. Like, but what we believe is that you have certain elements that are like things that absolutely are going to happen. They're going to happen, but it doesn't matter if you go this way or you go this way or you go this way. Like, you're going to get to one of those. You're going to get to those events. They're still going to happen, but you can get to them whatever way you need to, and you'll still learn what you're here to learn.
Well, as Paul Rudd said in Avengers Endgame, Back to the Future is bullshit then. I, but yeah, so I can understand that, and I definitely get that. I mean, I'm agnostic. I can't hold faith in any one religion. I pull elements from all of them and kind of see what makes sense. But I've also talked to people on this podcast that have seen God, have seen the devil, and it's it's so hard to figure out what to believe when you hear all these stories. And it's just like I believe most of these stories too because they people that are telling them seem genuine and they don't seem like they're trying to make things up. But
Hmm.
you really don't know unless you experience things yourself. And
It's
when
true.
that happens, give me a sign. But when it happens, it happens. But so, any other paranormal or supernatural experiences you want to talk about, possibly, or
Well, yeah, I think that what's really interesting is you saying, I don't want to, like, it's hard to believe that unless you get like a sign, right? But
I'm
what?
I'm a scientific minded person, so
Mhm.
I like to see things proven in front of me. Like
Right.
it's just the way I've always been. My brother's the same exact way. So, but he is a very religious Christian now. But he was rebaptized and all that. But I need to see something, and I don't know if he actually saw something or heard something. But
Hmm.
I need something to come to me and be like, idiot. This is what's true. Believe it. So yeah.
Well, here's what I have to say about that. I say be careful what you wish for, because that old sign thing, that can be really devastating. I mean, that's one of the reasons why, like I said, like I had this kind of possession experience when I was younger. And one of the reasons why is because um, I think that I'm not really sure what I was doing, but I was making a lot of decisions that weren't in my best interest. And I think that I don't know if I was looking for a sign, but somebody gave me a sign, and the sign was terrifying. And basically, you talk about people seeing God or seeing the devil, and basically, I saw hell, and hell's bad. um, like, hell's real bad.
That
So,
that's that's what we are led to believe at least. I mean, so I
no, no,
definitely
no, 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 no. Listen, what you think of as hell. whatever you think hell is, whatever you think heaven is, you need to throw it away because that's not real. But what hell really is really, really bad. And and I can describe it, but it's hard to tell somebody a thing. Um, it's hard to tell somebody a thing if they don't have a bedrock of knowledge beforehand. Because what happens is, like, there's kind of universal laws that run the universe. One of the laws is if you are not someone of faith, you really can't actually accept you can't accept experiences um, that that are based that require faith, right? So I could tell you I saw God or the devil or hell, and if you don't have at least a modicum of faith that those things exist, it doesn't really matter. Like, that information is not going to
Oh,
help you.
well, like I said, I'm agnostic. I'm not an atheist, so
Oh yeah,
I do have some faith that there has to be something out there besides just humans. But
yeah.
obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be doing a paranormal podcast.
That's
But
true. That's
so
true.
I
Well,
mean,
I'll tell you a little bit about what I saw if you want to hear. But it's really scary, and I highly suggest that you it's hard to describe. So anytime anybody has an experience that transcends kind of this reality, it's very difficult to translate into words. I am a writer, so I'll do my best.
all
But
right.
basically,
Well, before you start, let's just
okay.
say this. Let's give a brief second. So, parents, if your kids are in the room and you want to leave the room, now is a chance for when you're listening to this in the future.
Hmm. That's a
All
good
right.
idea. I like that.
All right, you kicked the little
So
you kicked the little Johnny out of the room now, so let's get into this. I am dying to hear it actually.
So, basically, what happened was I ended up with some friends, and um, we were involved in some activities that weren't fantastic for us. They so yeah, so you have to keep that in mind. And what happened was my friends were doing fine. Everything was normal for them. But I started hearing voices in my ears. I started hearing voices, people talking inside of my head. And I was like, oh, that's crazy. And then as like they're talking, kind of these, I can't hear what they're saying. I just know that they're talking. And then as that happened, I had a life review, but it was really, really super fast. And it was a review of the things that I had done wrong. And not like all of like, it's not like, um, it wasn't like there was a bunch of judgment on those experiences. It just showed me all of the decisions that I had made up to the point where I was living at that moment. And it showed me the decisions and what I had chosen and why it had led me to the moment that I was in. Um,
So
and
like a slideshow of all your not so great moments in life, basically.
yeah, exactly. And it wasn't, but like I said, there wasn't a lot of judgment. It just that was just what it was. I knew that that's what it was. These were the decisions I had made that showed me kind of. It hadn't been a long time. It just had been a couple of years of kind of making consistently negative decisions, consistently decisions that were dark. They were bringing darkness into my life. I had brought all this darkness into my life over and over and over again. I had brought darkness into my life, and then here I was, and I had made myself vulnerable. Basically, I'd made myself vulnerable um, to having darkness take take me over, and so I start seeing these things, and I start talking. I'm talking while I'm seeing these things, and my friends who I'm with are like, she's talking in gibberish, she's not saying words, but in my own head I was saying words. I was saying real words. I was saying like things like, no, 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 that's not the right. Oh no, I can't believe it. Oh no, I did that thing. Oh my gosh, I did this thing. Oh no, no, no. And I had seen I had made all these decisions that were really, really bad, and that were bad for my soul. um and my soul's protection, right? And then I was I was at the edge of a pit. And I wasn't there, but I was there. I was there and I wasn't. I was real. I was in this reality, but I was also not. And I was at the edge of a pit. It was a big pit. It was really deep, and my heels were like at the edge of the pit. Like I was about to fall in. And like a push, that's all it would take is just someone just very gently nudging me and I would be in it. And I looked back. Of course, I didn't really look back. I could just feel back behind me. And at the bottom of this pit was me. But I wasn't there, but I could be there. And it was me. And I was alone and I was on fire, but I wasn't on fire. It wasn't like fire like you think. It's not like fire like you think. Imagine, this is so scary. So I'm so sorry. But imagine if every single atom that makes up who you are was being sawed in half.
Sounds painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So really painful, but also was on fire. So sawed in half and on fire at the same time. And
Interesting.
and then it's incredibly cold and also incredibly it's so cold it burns. Um it was really scary. Now I saw all of this in an instant. All of this happened in just seconds. This is just seconds. Maybe a minute. Very, very fast. And like I said, I could feel, I could kind of see what that place was. And the worst part about that is that it didn't end. So that's the part. So it's easy to like hear this and think that it sounds stupid and that's fine.
Oh,
But
not at all. Not at all.
the other thing is that the endlessness of that is what's really terrifying. And you can't comprehend the endlessness of it. No one can. No one can comprehend endlessness. No, nobody here, at least. And so that is the worst. And so I'm like there, I got my heels on the edge of this cliff and I take a step forward and I start praying. I'm like, Jesus, please, you've got to help me. And as soon as I did that, it pulled me off. It pulled me away. I was pulled out. I was pulled away from it. Like I was at the very, very edge. But as soon as I stepped forward and I prayed, I was out and I was back in reality again. I was back in the moment that I was living. I was in this reality.
And just because the next comment I'm going to have, I want this question to come out first.
Mm-hmm.
How long ago was this? Just out of curiosity.
Oh, this was when I was 19. So it was a while ago. It was like
Okay.
22 years.
All right. So because I'm watching it. I've been watching it the last few days, so I mean that's why I can relate to this kind of. But it sounds like kind of like being in the Upside Down Stranger Things, but not exactly the same. But it kind of seems like
Mm.
being in the Upside Down Stranger Things, where you're not really in the reality, but you could see everything around it, and you could see what's going on there.
Yeah. So I think that the issue, what I think is, here's what I think. What I think is, um, that this world, as physical as it seems, is a frequency, right? It's a frequency of one, right? And we're all dialed down to a frequency of one. Some people who are here have a frequency of two, or maybe like they're my mom and she has like a frequency of three, where you can kind of feel things that aren't physically like available, like things you can't see, things you can't hear. Maybe these are the people that, like you said, have extrasensory skills and abilities. But I think that all of us at some part of us are at a frequency of 100. We belong in a different reality. We belong in a reality of spirit, and that's where we belong. We're actually down here. We've all tuned down all the way down to a 1 so we can have this physical experience where we're alone and we have to do things like go to the bathroom and eat and, and fight with our mother-in-laws. Like that's what our job is here to do. So we can learn things. But there's a part of us that's on a totally different frequency. Like it's way up at the top. It's the part of us that belongs in the spirit realm. It's the spirit world where God lives and where angels live and where demons live and where the devil lives, right? That's that a part of us is that part of us belongs there. So, so I think that there are times when, like in case, I think there are times when you pop out of the physical realm and you dial up because something is happening on one of those other levels that's really important. And for me, I kind of dialed into a different reality that was a spiritual reality, but was synonymous and at the same time happening as my physical reality. And I actually think that that's how it is all the time. I think that both the spirit and the physical are happening here right now where we are. I don't think heaven is in the sky. I don't think hell is under the ground. They're here and they just live with us, around us all the time.
But all right, so I can kind of agree with that to some point. But what do you make of ancient mythologies like ancient Greece and ancient Egypt all having like ideas of an underworld where the dead stay? Like
Yeah.
I just want
I think it's cool. I mean, I think that idea is interesting. I think that the ground is scary and people are scared of the earth and being buried. And so we think, well, our body goes under the ground, so our spirit must go under the ground too. But that's not really the case at all. I think that maybe there's a part of the spirit realm that exists simultaneously with the earth, like underneath the earth. I mean, that's possible. But I think that once again, we're talking about frequency. This is a human real, like, this is a reality frequency. Reality is a frequency. And when you're done with this reality frequency, you go back up to your spirit frequency. And and that's what it is. It's always here. You always have access to it, which is why there are people who have the ability to, you know, see the future or read palms or whatever. You have access to that spirit reality, but we are in a physical reality right now, and that's part of our job here on the earth is to learn in our physical reality.
interesting. I mean, it reminds me kind of well. I'm a movie TV hound, so excuse me if I relate to everything to
Oh, you're
movies,
totally good.
but it kind of reminds me of the whole Star Wars like becoming a Force ghost type thing.
Mhm.
Like you have to you have to learn to commune with the Force ghost before you die. Otherwise, you won't be able to commune once you're dead.
It's true. Yeah, I don't know if you yeah, that's it's interesting. I think that that's one of the reasons why Star Trek, Star Wars resonates so much with so many people. I think that there's actually a lot of truths there. I think that this idea of good versus evil and that there's a force that kind of drives our motivation. Like I think that that force that they talk about there, I think that force is real and that it is a spiritual force, that it's pervasive, it's in everything.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean it's the same thing as a lot of people can have. A lot of people have telekinetic abilities, telepathic abilities. A lot of people have are able to read emotions without like talking to someone.
Mhm.
So I mean, yeah, that's all very related to the Force in Star Wars, and I think it is just a good analogy for what the real world as well. I think it's where George Lucas kind of came up with it. I think he
Mhm.
looked at the real world and he just said, "Well, people have these. People are supposed to have these abilities. I mean, Carrie was written before Star Wars came out, so maybe he took a little bit from Stephen King in that too, with the whole
Hmm.
telekinetic abilities. But and
Cool.
I never actually put that together till now. But that's a good idea. I may have to use that idea in the future yet again. But I mean, see, I never had any kind of interaction with any spirit until this past December when I bought my house, and the builders and married couple who lived here previously are still living here, even though they passed on a few years ago.
That's too bad.
It
Are they bothering you or are they okay?
no, they're okay. I mean, they're good people from what I could tell, and they're good spirits because we actually had a paranormal research investigative team come in that's local in Massachusetts, and they did all their tests and everything, and we basically found out they like to stay in the kids' rooms because they never had children, so they like to watch over the children. But and I actually had one of them say thank you in my ear when we were asking them questions about if they like what I've done to the house since I bought it. So that was
That's kind of sweet, actually.
it is
It's nice when you have ghosts that are nice like that.
it is, but it's also kind of freaking weird when you have like the chills down your back and you start sweating at the same time before that happens. It's kind of creepy, but it was definitely a nice thing, and I told that story in this podcast many times, but I it's my one true paranormal experience besides possibly seeing UFOs. But I feel like everybody has seen UFOs at some point to some degree at this day and age. But yeah, I mean, wow, the whole idea of interdimensional hell and heaven. I like that idea too, but I feel like there has to be some kind of underworld type place where, because I don't feel like all the spirits of the dead could fit on Earth really, and not be running. I feel like we'd be seeing spirits a lot more often if that was the case. I think they maybe they are kept underground and they're just like in an underworld type place.
Mhm.
I hate calling it hell even because there's been so many different names for it throughout history, but
Yeah.
I in
Well,
the if they're
I
kept in the underworld, maybe they get like day passes or week passes to go up and take care of unfinished business or something, or to warn a relative.
yeah, I don't know. Maybe I honestly think that I don't think there's a lot of spirits here just because I think that uh I honestly don't think that when you think of ghosts, it's really hard. This is really hard to describe because when we're talking about frequency, like if you are how do you say this? So when you're talking about frequency, some like on a like it's just like a radio station, you know, like if you dial up to 95.7, you hear music. If you go 97.6, you hear static, right? And so think about that. Like you're dialing up and you dial up to a 1 and here's all these physical people. You dial up to 2 and you've got like, I don't know, 200,000 spirits that are like at a level 2, and dial up a 3, and then you've got totally different spirits at a level 3. They're all living simultaneously. They're living in different realities. They're living in different realities. It's like reality stacked on top of reality.
Which we may get into this a little bit later on creature feature, but which that kind of gives me a theory for shadow people and glimmer men and mirrored men and all that too as well. But that that could bring me down a whole rabbit hole into another theory I could make up. Well, not make up, but just put together. I would say rather than make up. But I am very good at putting together theories based on things my guests tell me. But but I it makes sense. I mean, I honestly like the analogy of it being like a radio station type thing because people say that aliens and Bigfoot are extra dimensional as well. So that would actually might actually all play together in a way.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. There have been some really weird like sightings lately. Like, did you see that one? It was like, I don't know. I was on TikTok and I saw this weird like golem looking creature. Did you see that? It was like weird little guy in South America with weird face and weird hands.
I don't think I've seen that exactly what you're talking about, but I have seen similar videos in the past, and
I think, yeah, I think they're called dwindies. I could be wrong.
I that sounds very familiar. So I think you're right, actually, because that name sounds very familiar. I never would have came up with it on my own, but I think I have heard that name before, like
Wow. Oh,
Dwindy.
call it
Yeah,
a duende. Deende. A duende. It's like kind of like a little goblin kind of thing.
kind of like what we have up here in Massachusetts in the Bridgewater Triangle, the puckwudgies.
Pugwudgies.
But puckwudgies are supposed to look like little Ewoks.
Hmm.
Just to bring it back to Star Wars again, but that is what they're supposed to look like.
Weird.
And supposedly they talk the same way too, where like it's English, but it's very broken English and it's very basic, which makes you think that they may be like an ancient civilization that we thought was killed off or we haven't discovered, but they still survive to some degree.
Wow,
I
crazy.
mean, there's a lot of those though in the paranormal world that we think we've killed off, but they still survive. Because humans can try, but they can't kill off everything.
That's true. That's what my monsters anthology is all about. Is actually there's like a couple of stories that are about kind of human encroachment on monster territory. It's pretty. That's a pretty good book actually if you're into monsters and
What's it called?
creatures.
What's it called again for me and for the audience?
Oh, it's called Humans Are the Problem, a monsters anthology.
Ooh, I okay. I might have to buy that.
Yeah, actually it's pretty cool. There's some funny stories, there's some really scary stories, but it's all about kind of like it's a monster and horror anthology, but it's told from the perspective of like monsters, writing for monsters. So
I like that idea though. That's like underworld in a way where it's vampires and werewolves trying to deal with humans encroaching on like discovering them and everything.
exactly. Yeah.
I like that philosophy. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting point of view, and yeah, kind of like Hellboy too because I just watched that for another podcast I'm on. But so before we move on to creature feature, is there anything else you want to tell the audience about your past or about you? I mean, don't worry about socials. We'll get to that at the end. But
Yeah, about me, not really. I mean, I'm excited. I'm excited for people to read our new book, and I think it's going to be really fun. I think that people should. Oh, I do want to say one more thing about like hell, which is what I was talking about. Which is that. Um, Give me 1 second so I can get my dogs to stop talking. What I want to say was this that I think that hell is a perspective. And I think that heaven is also a perspective. And um, if you're the kind of person who revels in darkness and it has like is self-serving and tends to be and finds like lots of and you choose to be selfish and you choose to blame other people for your issues and those kinds of things, then you are putting yourself in the mindset of hell because hell is really lonely. It's really, really lonely. There's no one else except for you. That's all. And then you have to deal with all of the fallout and all of the ramifications and the consequences of all the times that you were selfish and unkind and cruel, and you have to feel those pains that you inflicted on people around you. um so yeah, it's a mindset. So you actually people here I think on this earth can actually put themselves into hell by choosing to have those kinds of selfish, cruel, and unkind thoughts. You actually start reaping the benefits of hell while you're here, and which sucks. But on the other hand, I think heaven is also attainable here. So, like, heaven is another mindset. It's a mindset of kindness and forgiveness and love and generosity, patience and a willingness to learn and grow. And those kinds of behaviors and attitudes, they actually give you access to heaven while you are on this earth. So you actually reap the benefits of those while you're here. So when we die, we actually don't make this massive transformation. It's not like you're poof, you're suddenly good or poof, you're suddenly bad. Actually, it's an extension of what you've chosen to create for yourself here. That is what happens when we die. We extend that creation from what we do here into the next world. So what I learned from my experience is that you can choose to be selfish and you can choose to court darkness. You can choose to bring darkness to your life and let it take you over. Um, or you can choose to bring joy and kindness and generosity into your life and allow that to be a part of who you are and then let heaven take over and be a part of your life. But it's your choice. Everyone gets to choose, and every choice that you make chooses either death or it chooses life. It chooses fear or it chooses love. Every single choice that you make chooses one of those things. And so you're responsible. You are actually building your own eternity as we speak.
which is I kind of can see the idea behind that, but it's just kind of ironic because it. I just my guest my bonus episode that just came out this past Wednesday. The guest was a man who died in the hospital, and he while he was in a coma basically and dying, he was met by a human like figure who came through a door, and he believes it was God. He just says he just knew, and supposedly God said to him, "Do you want to stay on Earth or do you want to come home?" So he, according to him, he was given a choice, which that's why I find it ironic that I've had these two episodes are going to be right after each other, basically. So, which I like because everybody wants. I want to hear all the views on this type of stuff I could ever hear. I mean, that's just
Mm-hmm.
the way it is because belief systems are such a great thing because everybody believes different things, and it's just
It's true.
there's always the common elements that to me that's what's the common elements make it all real because there's so much in common with everything else.
Yeah, I think that the ability to choose is one of the most special abilities that we have. I actually think that it's the greatest gift that we have here in this level of existence is this ability to choose. I don't think that it's like this everywhere. I think if you've had anybody with a near death experience on, they'll tell you that uh, when you're dead and you're having a near death experience, it is what it is. It's truth. That's it. You just get truth. There's not a lot of, there's no discussion about that. But here on this planet, we have this opportunity where we don't have truth and we talk about it all the time. And we get a chance to kind of decide what it is that we want to believe and all of these kind of cool things that we don't get to do anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting. I mean that kind of lines up with Christianity, what you said in a way too, and a lot of other religions where what you do on Earth or in this dimension or in this plane
Hmm.
makes that's what makes the decision of where you go in the afterlife. I mean, the ancient Egyptians believed it, the ancient Greece believed it to some degree, and I mean the Norse believed it to some degree as well, even though they basically said if you didn't die in battle, you're going to hell. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, but it's just interesting, very interesting, and
Hmm.
I mean, I would not that I want to get a glimpse of hell, but if it does exist to some degree, I would love to know it exists because I don't think I'm going there by any means, even though people in my family have told me I am because I don't believe. But
Hmm.
I don't think believing in any kind of deity is what makes us go anywhere. I believe it's just being a good person or being a bad person,
Hmm.
which I like to think I've been a good person, but I'm sure there's people out there that disagree with me. I'm sure. But
I'll tell you what, even if you don't believe in God, He believes in you. And that's all that matters.
yay. But no, I mean, see, that's where it gets hard for me because I believe in gods. I believe in a more not monotheistic but polytheistic type of way because
Mhm.
in my mind there can't be one of anything in this on this world on this universe. There can't be one of anything. That's just not the way it works. But I don't know. It just but yeah,
Yeah.
I
It's a
can't.
hard one. It's a hard one. I know. I know it. All I know is that I am so grateful that I'm really really grateful that I had an upbringing that was religious because I really did I did have some really scary stuff that I've seen and it's actually followed me my whole life. So I still have nightmares about the things that I saw when I was in that experience. I and they mess me up. They mess me up every time. Like I have them every month or 2 months. I have a nightmare about
Do you have paralysis? Oh, what the hell's it called?
it. Paralysis?
Yeah, sleep paralysis when you have these nightmares, or no?
No, I mean I don't know if I have sleep paralysis, but I don't think so. I don't feel
Oh,
like I'm trapped or anything.
All right, then yeah, because from everything I heard, if you had sleep paralysis, you know you had it,
Yeah,
because you
no, I'm not
it's
paralyzed. No.
all right, all
Yeah,
right,
it's just, I have nightmares about, yeah, I just have nightmares about it. And what's
yeah.
really terrible is I cannot remember my nightmares. I have no idea what the nightmares are. I just
I
wake up
hate
knowing that I've had them.
I hate that. That's the worst when you can't remember when you have. I've woken up sweating from some bad dreams that like are trippy as hell, and like you wake up and like 5 minutes later you're like, what the hell is the dream about? Like I don't know. I've had some creepy ones since I met my then girlfriend, now wife,
Oh,
brought, and I brought her kids in my life. I had a lot of bad nightmares when they first came in my life because the whole
yeah,
aspect of becoming a father and
yeah,
kind of like having responsibility over another human being's life is a whole trippy experience in its own way.
crazy. Yeah, my nightmares are really strange because I uh it sounds really weird. I have these dreams. I know that they are bad. I know they have to do with my experience. Um I know that I can remember that I can't, so as I'm waking up, I forget. So you know like that time when you're like kind of awake and you're kind of asleep? You know that feeling?
Yeah, there's a name for it, but I can't think of what
Mhm.
it's called at the moment. But
No, there's
there's
a
a
time when, like, your consciousness wakes up maybe a half a second before your mind actually wakes up. You're, like, kind of waking up. What happens is as I wake up, the knowledge of my dream disappears in the exact opposite direction. So I actually never can remember the dream, ever. I don't remember anything about it. All I know is that it's really bad, and
yeah,
it happens every time. So I actually there's no dream. Does that make sense? Like there's no narrative. All I know is
yeah,
I have a dream and I can't remember it. It's been like scrubbed from my memory. Like it literally feels like it's been scrubbed from my memory. Like you took one of those like Men in Black thing and like someone zapped it. Like it's gone. I can't remember it.
yeah. It's just that bad feeling that sticks in the back of your throat. Like, ooh,
Yeah,
that
it's
was bad.
terrifying. Like it's really scary, but I can't remember it.
All right. Well, with that, I think we shall jump into creature feature because
Yeah.
it is getting late in the East Coast, and I do have to go work tomorrow, which I don't want to, but I have to.
Sure.
Hopefully, soon enough, it won't be a weekend thing anymore. So we'll see.
Yes.
I know that'd be great. So, what creature feature is for listeners and for my guests and others who don't know? Basically, I have a list of 30 or so paranormal creatures. We don't go through them all, of course, because then we'd be here all day. But we go through ones that I pick that are ones we didn't talk about to some degree already, and we just we talk about what we believe with them, and it's always fun to hear different theories because a listener might hear a new theory they never heard before, and they might fall in love with that theory. So, and this first one I already had in my mind since about a half hour ago, and since we already talked about different dimensions and planes and frequencies on Earth, where do you think the fae or fairies or elementals, as they're called,
Mm.
play into all this?
That's an interesting idea. Fairies. I don't know.
Or fae? I like to call them
Yeah.
fae, and apparently in the UK they're called elementals. My guest last week told me, but
Interesting. I don't know. I have a really hard time believing in fairy. I feel like, from my experience, I have never dealt with anything that was cryptid of any kind. Like I've never dealt with anything like that. So I don't know. I'd love to believe in fairies, but I don't believe in them. And if I did believe in them, I would say they probably live in a parallel universe. Like they live in a universe that's not in this one, but like probably adjacent. Same thing with like lizard people. I'm guessing that lizard people are real, except that like I don't think they live in this on this plane. I think they live on this plane adjacent. I think they're next door.
so you don't think they live underground in Los Angeles
No, I do not. I do not think that they live here. I think that they visit here, but I don't think they live here.
or in Skateboard Swamp in Louisiana? But but yeah, I mean, well, I'll stick with the fae for now because I'll get into the other subject in a second. But I mean, to me, there are so many stories of old and like legends of, oh, if you don't want to make the fairies mad, you better leave out a little saucer of milk for them. Like
Mhm.
all the old folklore that leads to like there's so much of it in every culture that, and even like I said before with the Puckwudgies in the Bridgewater Triangle, I mean, it's believed that they could be a version of the Fae because when I picture the Fae, I picture like the movie Maleficent in her
Mhm.
little land of fairies and Fae, where it's all different creatures living together, but they're just not creatures humans would see and not want to kill for some reason because humans are
Mhm.
just evil to some point. But so I have to believe in Fae to some degree because I've heard so many stories about them possibly being real and people seeing them and people having interactions with them, which actually might have a guest coming up who believes they have nests underneath her bed.
Yeah, that's awesome. I would love to see that.
Yeah, that might be a month or so out. I'm pretty booked up for the next month. I
Wow.
also, yeah, I mean, you start getting somewhat semi popular with a paranormal podcast, and you start getting people reaching out to you a lot. But I love it, and I appreciate everybody who does. But
Yeah, cool.
as far as lizard men go, or reptilians, I may even dare to call them, do you think? Well, let's just jump into this because it's going to lead to this anyway. What is your idea of aliens? If are they just another frequency, or are they actually out in outer space?
That's actually an interesting question too. I think that if I had to like come up with a theory that I actually believe, I would say they probably are able to travel within frequencies. That's my guess. They probably can travel, they probably travel through frequencies to get to different reality levels. That's my thought. I don't know. I know that they exist in this reality, but I also know that they can travel through water and land and air and mountains at the same speed. So they must be bending the reality somehow because they are able to do that.
Well, either they learn to jump to light speed and do quick jumps very well, or there is a very popular theory that aliens are from different dimensions and they learn how to jump through dimensions to get places fast. Otherwise, they'd be traveling to Earth for a million years if they're that far away. Where because if you can only travel at the speed of light, you're not getting that far.
Yeah, it's true. Well, that's the thing that the speed of light is not that doesn't make sense. I mean, from our physics standpoint, it doesn't make sense. And it's clear that from some of the recent videos that have been released by the government and that kind of
Pentagon,
like
Pentagon, yeah.
yeah, the Pentagon letters, whatever. It's clear that the aliens can move through air and sea and rock at the same speed. Like they don't have to slow down, they don't have to swerve, they can just go through it, which means that they have to be able to move through the dimension to be able to do that.
Which would make sense, and it would also explain why Men in Black, who, so I've heard many theory that Men in Black are aliens who are just trying to keep the word about themselves down.
Mm,
So that would explain how they get to some of these alien sightings, UFO sightings scenes back in the 50s to 70s so fast. Back when on Earth there was no transportation that can get you across states like within minutes.
right.
Even today, there really isn't unless you have a private jet and you're hopping in it and like gunning it to the next state. But even then, it's just I don't know. The Men in Black kind of freak me out to some degree because as much as I love Big Willie Smith playing Men in Black, I mean the movies are just a comedy version of it. When and oh, is that my buddy Josh who tends to be on Global Strangeness a lot? I think so. Yeah, Men in Black. I don't know if it's the government. Yeah, okay, there you go, Josh. It's the government and aliens. I truly believe that because there are stories of the government talking to aliens since back in the 50s and 40s, and there's rumors of it even before that. There's rumors that, I mean, if you want to go down a wormhole, we could talk ancient aliens and how they helped ancient civilizations like Egyptians and Aztecs and all that build Machu Picchu, the pyramids, all these structures that no human back then would have been able to figure out how to build. I don't believe they would have been able to. I mean, yeah, they might have had their Einsteins back then in the ancient times, but I truly don't believe that they were able to come up with this back in ancient times when they couldn't figure out how to build houses yet, for God's sake, besides
Yeah.
little mud huts.
Yep, that's true.
So I truly believe aliens have been in contact with the government since. I mean, I love the depiction on South Park of aliens in the Vatican, and that's how they've been keeping in touch with humanity all these years is by through the Pope in the Vatican. But I do like that idea, and I mean, our religion may. Thank you, Joshua. I appreciate that. But our religion may be completely. All religion on Earth might be based on aliens. It's very possible. I don't want to go into it too far. I don't want to offend people who believe in are religious. I don't want to offend them because I don't want to
Mhm.
offend. I intend to offend or harm anybody with this podcast, but it's just I aliens to me have been ingrained in human culture since we first crawled out of the caves because there are cave paintings of gray faces that they have pictured and found, and ancient civilizations only drew on cave walls what they saw from time to time, whether it be a cattle, a tiger, a lion, or apparently a gray, because
Mm.
there are multiple examples of that in different caves. But I don't know. I mean, this is a worm. Aliens are a wormhole I go down all day, and unfortunately, I don't have all day because it's late already. But
That's
ali-
true.
aliens are. So as far as lizard people go, I mean, I believe lizard people or reptilians. I believe in greys. I believe in Nordic aliens that look like. I believe those are what the Norse saw. I mean, the Swedish, the Norwegian, the all
Hmm.
Finnish. They all saw, I believe, Norse aliens, which look like what we commonly believe Thor and Odin and all those look like, even down to Chris Hemsworth looking like that kind of. I mean,
Cool.
I think that's what they saw, and that's why their gods look like that and look like them, and that
Hmm.
versus why Egyptian gods were animal looking, or why Aztecian gods were the same thing. They were crocodile looking, or they were panther or jaguar looking, because there have been ideas that cats are. I actually listened to a podcast this week where they talked about possibility that cats are alien watchdogs, basically, who come in, who they brought to Earth to watch humans and study them.
Hmm.
But it's all interesting theories. It really
Yeah,
is,
it's true.
and I do. I can't go down this wormhole forever though. Otherwise, I'll never move on. I gotta do a special on Alien someday, like a 5 hour special. But all right. What was the other one? There's definitely other. There's other ones I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, actually, I said we're gonna go back into this in creature feature earlier, so let's go back into it.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I am going to have to go pretty soon.
All right, so I'll bring up this one last theory we can talk about for a minute or two, then we'll wrap it up. I'm fine with that. But let's go with what I said earlier about shadow people and mirrored men and different types of ghosts and spirits, where they be full bodied apparitions or just white fog clouds that really can't make a shape yet. Which
Mhm.
I used to have a theory that when you die, it's like being born again. You go through phases where when you're a baby spirit, you can only be like white fog or black fog. You can't make a shape yet. Eventually, you become like a older spirit and you can make a shadow person figure because you can make yourself into a human shape but without features. And then as you develop into your final form as a spirit, you can become a full body apparition of yourself or anybody you want to look like.
Mhm.
That used to be my theory. But
Mm.
with your different frequency theory of radios and whatnot, I believe maybe that's why on different frequencies ghosts look different to different people. The same person might see a ghost and say, "Oh, it looks like my grandmother," and another person in the family might see it and say, "That's a shadow person."
Mhm.
What do you think?
Um, well, I mean, I think that the like shadow people are probably people that live on a different plane than us, probably on a lower frequency than we are. A frequency that doesn't have a physical body but still has intent. And so I think that they actually break down into a couple different kinds of people. I think that shadow people can be the dead that are trapped here because of their own choices. A lot of times that will feel a little bit like hell to them. They'll be trapped here and they won't want to leave or they won't be able to leave. I think that also shadow people can be demons that literally belong in the lowest form of existence that are trying to attack people who have bodies and take over their experience. That's what I think.
Interesting, very interesting. And Josh, yes, I that's my theory too, is that shadow people were human at one point, which honestly, Willow's theory makes sense for that too, because if shadow people were humans, but then they just when they passed on, they went down frequencies because they weren't a good person or because they were angry all the time or something like that. That might make you become a shadow person as well because you become black, you become the human idea of everything that is dark.
Hmm.
So that makes sense. I agree with that 100%. But all right, but since we both got to kind of get going, where can they find out about your books and your company, and where can they buy your books?
You can actually find our books online at weirdlittleworlds.com. And we have a couple of books out that we've got, like I said, we have Humans of the Problem, a Monsters Anthology. And then we also have Mother, Tales of Love and Terror, which is coming out in October. So October 1st. But you'll be able to pre-order those on the 4th of July. So
And is there still a Kickstarter going for that, I believe, or is
oh,
that almost over?
no, Kickstarter's done, so if you
Okay.
want to buy one, you can, but we don't have any of the cool packages that you can buy. So,
I was looking at it the other day. I thought I had a few days left, but it might have
mhm.
been the other day it ended. But
Yeah, it ended a while ago now, but
all right, maybe I
you can
just
still buy one and get cool. You can get a cool book, and the book's really great.
I may have to because I have been developing a collection of books by authors and by publishers I've interviewed.
Cool,
So
awesome.
I don't know if you heard of Brandy Alexander yet, but
Mm.
she just put out her first book. She was my second episode of this podcast. She's put out her first book last year, earlier this year, and
Hmm.
it's basically about a boy who can see spirits and who can he sees his brother because his brother saved his life, but he died in the process. So he can see his
Oh,
brother's spirit, and he can see a couple other spirits that he becomes friends with, and he becomes like a he helps the Las Vegas Police Department solve crimes with the help of the spirits, and eventually he becomes developed in a war between angels and demons.
oh,
It's called Genesis, a paranormal alliance destined to fight the forces of evil.
wow.
And she already has the second book written, and it's coming out next year possibly. And she already has the third and fourth book started too. So it's an interesting series. I can't wait to have her back on. I can't wait to read the next book because I literally read this whole book because I was so enthralled by the idea.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
So everybody should check out Brandy Alexander's books and also check out Willow's company's books, Weird Little Worlds. I will definitely be checking these out because I love anthologies. I love podcasts like something scary where it's just anthologies by different authors and whatnot. So I love that type of stuff. So check it out.
Awesome.
Her her anthologies may become the next why did I lose it? Scary stories told in the dark. It
Ooh,
might
yeah,
become
that would be
it could be
great.
it could become the next one. But oh, and Josh agrees apparently. So so thank you, Josh, our number one fan on Global Strangeness, for checking in. We did Global Strangeness a little earlier tonight, so you missed that unfortunately. But glad to see you. So I know you're okay. But so any other socials you want to drop, or is that it?
Nope, that's good. You can find us on Twitter at We're Lit Worlds, and on Facebook, We're Little Worlds. And yeah, we're
All
on
right.
Instagram, We're Little Worlds. So you can find
I
us
love
everywhere.
I love that name, but
Oh,
and
hey,
I will definitely tag you in all the promotion for this episode as well. But
awesome.
and as you all my guests know, you can find the Paranormal the Normal Facebook group on Facebook, and everything I am involved in is posted on that page. So feel free to join it, and you can see all the podcasts I'm in, paranormal and not. But which I am on two paranormal podcasts, so that's a lot of paranormal. But and you can also find me on Twitter and on Instagram as Juggalo Bastard, and I post all these podcasts on there too. So and that name comes from another podcast, as you all know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I thank you, Willow, for being on Paranormal than Normal after all our time zone mix-ups and
I
delays and everything
know, I
else.
know. I'm so glad we got to do it.
Me too. I'm very happy to have you on, and I'd be also happy to have you on in the future again if you guys have another book coming out,
Yeah.
possibly that you want to promote. I'd be glad to do it. So,
Awesome. So, yeah, it sounds great. I would love to come back on. Thank you so much.
and all my listeners, this will be dropping on the 3rd of July tomorrow. So, have a happy 4th of July. Keep it safe. Blow up some fireworks for me because I live on the New Hampshire border, but I haven't had time to get any. So, blow some fireworks up for me, and have a safe and good 4th. And
Yay.
we thank you, Willow, for coming on once again. And we will see you all. I will be on Parapost Network this week with 4 different interviews as well. So
Wow.
I will keep. Yeah, I'm a busy man. I will keep you all busy. I'll keep you all busy. I will, but I'll keep you all entertained as well. I will see all my watchers next time.
Okay.